Hello and namaste. Welcome back to the channel, and this is another video in the series of dealing with data using Java. In this video, we're going to be looking at database and basically how to initialize a database, either a cloud or your local self-managed database, how to query a few tables, how to create a table, update, delete, select, and a statement like that. So basically this is gonna be a very beginner level database stuff, and next video we're gonna be looking at how to interact with the database using Java. But for this video we're gonna be focusing on just the database side, and I'm gonna show you guys how to run few queries in your database and what are the things you need to be careful about. So you can see in my screen I have this postgresql.org/download URL. So this is a download link for Postgres. So if you want to manage your own database, and like I said, you can download this database on your machine. So there's a link for Linux, Mac OS, Windows, and all this stuff. So for example, if you're on Mac, if you go to Mac, here there's a various version, and then same thing you could do it with the Windows and Linux. So it's pretty easy to set up your local database, but for this video we're going to be looking at actually a cloud one, because it is very easy to do the cloud one. It barely take a minute, and I'm going to be looking at one of the cloud one that is free. So let's jump into that. So I'm going to cancel this link here, but if you want your own database, you can download from here. So let's cancel this out. So I'm going to head over to this one. This is what I was talking about, ElephantSQL.com. This is a PostgreSQL provider, Postgres as a service. So they will manage your database for you. And then the reason I chose this one is because they have a free tier where you can use it for free, and the free one is perfect for our demonstration purpose. So let's I'm going to show you guys how to create a database here. So you're going to go log in here, so you can see up here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create my new instance. So if you click that, so this is it's basically saying like, hey, you don't have a credit card, missing billing information, blah blah. You don't really need to, because you'll only be doing a test. So I'm going to be dealing with data here, dealing with data using Java. You can give any name you like, and so if you go up here for ElephantSQL, they have various pricing tier. So if you go pricing up here, so they have Tiny Turtle, Simple Spider, Crazy Cat, Pretty Panda, and more, honestly. But for our testing and demonstration purpose, we're going to be using a Tiny Turtle. So let's go back here. The Tiny Turtle is selected. So as a tag, I'm going to give it Java, just like before. Select region here. And I'm going to just leave it as a Northern Virginia review. And finally, as you can see, create instance. So boom, we have our database ready. So if you click on that, you can see connection link, URL, your username, password. I'm showing you guys everything here. It's because I'm going to be deleting this database after the video. So by the time you're watching this video, this database will not exist. But it makes it easier for you to see everything. So I decided to show everything to you guys. So up here, there's many options. Here's a browse. Oh, you can run the query, statistics. So connection here, you might see how many connection per application, all this stuff. Slow queries, if you have, this is basically a Postgres admin stuff. So if you are managing database and your database are running slow. So you come up here, see what are the queries that are running slow. There's some backup, maintenance, and all this stuff. But for us, none of that really matters. We're just running it for a test. So now we have the database ready. Next thing we need is a way to query this database. We're gonna need a application to interact with the database. For that, we're going to be using a database IDE for Postgres. It's called pgadmin up here. If you look at the link, this is pgadmin. You can do pgadmin.org/download, and they have this pgadmin for every machine pretty much. You can run as a Docker container, you can run in macOS and all that, Python, you name it. So what we're going to do, we're going to hit that. I'm on Mac, so I'm going to go ahead and click Mac, and I'm going to download one of this here. That being said, I have already downloaded this thing in my machine. So I'm going to show you guys here what I downloaded. But before doing that, I also need a connection here. So as you guys can see it, this is what I need. So let's see up here. I'm going to open up my pgadmin. So this is my pgadmin. So when you first time open up the pgadmin, it looks like this. So what we're going to do, we're going to click on here, right click on the servers, create server, and we're going to give it a name. I'm going to give the name again, that dealing with data using Java. And let's see, connection. So it is requiring us to put in host name, SSL, all that. But let's check it out. SSL tunnel advanced. Well, in our case, I think the host name would be enough. So let's go back. I'm going to go back up here and click on here, and I'm going to try to see what's my host name. So this is my host name. I'm going to copy that just like that, and back to my pgadmin. I'm going to paste that in here. That's my host name. And we have port. I think it's a default port. So all I need is username, database, and password. Let's go back to our ElephantSQL here. So let's see, what's my database? Ooh, that is my password. So let's copy the password again and come back here. I'm going to put a password in here. That is my password. And then for database, I'm going to have to come back here. This is my database. So basically, I'm just copying, pasting stuff to set this up. So that's going to be our database here. And same thing, our username is going to be that. So let's go ahead and hit save. We got our database. So that was this quick. So that's why I went with this route. You could, like I said, you could also install Postgres database on your machine and kind of take it from there. But if it this way, it will only take a few minutes. So if I expand here, these are, since this is a shared database, you also see database for all these other people. But as you can see, this is the one that our database. So I'm gonna expand it. Well, let's see if I can open up query tool. So when I click that, I get the window. So this is the window where I put in my query and it will run my query. So the very first query I want to try is that I want to see all of the database that we have. So let's go ahead and type it out. Select that name. I think that's what it is. That name from PG database. Order by, I'm just going to do order by that name. So, and then you highlight it, run it. Here you go. These are all of the database. I don't know if you guys can see it. There you go. Those are all the database we have. They have quite a many database, 68, but not all of them are provisioned to us, but we can still see it. our database is this. Y, we can do here, it starts with Y, right? STXY, YJJ, that's our database right here. So since that's all the database, now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna look at all the table I have in my database. So information, for that we're going to do information schema. Information schema is a table, internal database table that has a lot of system stuff, and one of the stuff it has is the tables. So let's run it. Ooh, look at that, it already has this many tables. But if you look at the table name, we didn't create any of these tables, they were here. And the reason for that is these are all, if you look at the schema, they fall under PG catalog, and those are the internal tables. But we're going to be creating our own table here in a minute. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to do something here. If you really want to see the table that you only created, you can do schema. I think this one probably give you the table that only you have created. Well, it still gives you that PG stat statement, but it's a lot less than everything else. Now we have the table, we looked at the table stuff. Now what we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and create a few tables for demonstration purpose. The reason that is, I want to show you guys how to write few queries, how to do simple update and delete. So for an example, let's think of a company that does event management. So let's say we're going to be creating a database for a company that is doing event management. We're going to put all these complex things aside, and we're just going to focus on very simple stuff. For example, what are the things we need to manage an event? We probably need a listing of events, and next thing we probably need is the peoples that are going to be attending those events. So let's go ahead and create a few tables. First table I'm going to be creating is called event user, and this table is going to track all the user that we have in our what we call the event system. So let's do this. I'm gonna increase that a little bit. So first thing first, we're gonna be creating ID for these users, and this is gonna be big integer. That would be my type, and it is always generated, and it is identity, so it will be unique. Next thing I'm gonna track the email of every user, and this is gonna be type barcode, and I'm restricting that to be only 256. I'm being a little bit greedy here because we are running a free database, and I don't want to utilize too much of that. And we also need a first name, and this is also going to be not null. Every user we're going to require their name. And next thing I'm going to have is a last name, as you can guess, and this is also required, not null. And I'm going to add a primary key here, and that is going to be ID. So this is my event user. So I'm going to highlight this and run it. Boom, it says query returned successfully in 183 milliseconds. So that means our table is created. So one way to, once you have the table, one way to see what are the things you have in your table is really, again, we're going to be utilizing the, what we call information schema, because I told you earlier, information schema has a lot of the internal stuff. So here, this is the query I have. So we're going to be selecting table name, column name, and data type from information schema dot columns, and we are selecting for our tables called event user. So let's go ahead and run that. We should be able to see all of the columns. There we go. So we have the column called ID is big integer, email, barcode. so does the first name and last name. That is fantastic. Now we have the user that are going to be attending these events. Next thing we need is we need to populate this actually table, right? Right now there's nothing in the table. The reason I said that is if you run select from event_users, you get nothing because we haven't really inserted anything in this table. Empty. That's very sad, but what we're going to do, we're going to be inserting things to this table. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you guys a couple ways to do that. So here, the statement to insert things into the table would be insert into followed by your table name, and the columns. Here I'm including email, first name and last name, and then you start the type our keywords called values, and then you start the bracket, and then you put in email for ramu@techposted.com, first name Ram, and then the last name Bandari. You can also insert multiple rows at once. For example, here you basically after the first rows you put a comma and then kind of do the same for how many times you need. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be running these two statements here. Matter of fact, let me put a semicolon here. Sometime this complains, so let's run it. Query return successful. Now we inserted 1, 2, 3, 4 records in our event user table. So let's go ahead and run the select. Here we go. We got 4 records. We got Ramu, Hari, Sam, and Rajesh. That is fantastic. Now we already have the records in our event user table. What else we need is we need to create some events now. For that, let's go ahead and create a table called events. So again, it's pretty simple, just like before. We are going to be using that create table statement here. So this is the statement I'm going to be running on. So create table events ID generated always as identity. So again, event name, we want that. Event time. This is timestamp. The reason for that is this has a date and time. So that was pretty handy. Again, you see that all of these are not null. And then event location, we need a name of the event, when the event's going to be happening, and where it will be happening. So that's all we got here. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that and run here with that button up here. Boom, we have the event table created. Now let's go ahead and query that event table. It should be empty because we just created a table. So here we go, run, nothing. That's okay. Now what we're going to do, we're going to be creating few events here. Again, it's pretty simple. We are going to use that insert statement. Here we go. So we have few events, one called coffee with friends, fundraising for street children, and awareness against phone scam. Very cool. So let's go ahead and run these guys. I left out that I in there. So I'm going to copy that thing, run it, successful. Now since we ran that, I want to go ahead and see how many events we have. So highlight it, run it. We have 3 events. That is great. Now if you think about it, we already have events and we already have event user. So next thing I really need is something to track to see how many people are going to what event, or basically who is going to what events. For that, we're going to be creating another table, and the name of the table is going to be, I'm going to give it a name called event participants. And this is going to be a little bit different table than other tables. The reason for that is that this table is actually utilizing 2 other tables that we created. It is utilizing events table, and also utilizing event users table. And as you see, this is the create table statement I have. Always ID primary key. See up here, I'm adding constraint as a primary key. Next thing I have is event ID. It's a big integer not null, and event user ID, big integer not null. And this is what makes this table unique. This is basically a table that cross values from events table and event user table. It has foreign key to event user table with event user ID, and it also has foreign key to events table with event ID. And also it is not null. So basically this table will hold a ID for a user and a ID for an event. And that would be a user, participating in that event. So let's go ahead and run this query so that we have the table that we need. I'm going to highlight just like before and run it. Successful. That is great. So we have so far events, event users, and event participants table. And we also already populated event users table and event participant, not event participant, not yet. Event user table and events table. Now we're going to go ahead and populate event participant table. For that, I'm going to go ahead and I have this insert here that I'm going to run. Very easy. Come up here, boom. And all this number might not probably make sense to you guys. So I'm going to show you what all this means. Select from events here. So basically we have 3 events with ID 1, 2, and 3. And we have select from event users. And we have 4 users with ID 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically in event participant, we have event ID and event user. So basically what it's saying is like event ID 1 has user 1 going. Event ID 2 has user 1 going. Event ID 3 has user 1 going. So it looks like user 1 is going to all of the events. So Ramu is going to all of the events. Same thing here. Event ID 2 has user 2 going. Event ID 3 has user 3 going. And then again, looks like Rajesh is also going to all of the event. So let's go ahead and insert that thing in here. Boom, successful. So now we have all of our data ready. Like we created this table, we populated the values. Now I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys few query. And we're going to wrap up this session. And next video, we're going to be looking at how to interact with this database from Java application. This is basically a normal how to interact with the database with the database IDE. But next video, we're going to be doing this update, select, delete, all of that using Java. So before wrapping up, let's go ahead and write a few queries so that you guys can see what we are doing. So first query I want to write, I want to get a number of users that are going to every event. So let's do that. So I probably need event ID and I need a count. This is aggregate function in Postgres, and I'm going to be quoting event participant table because that table has all of the users that are going to an event. So, and I'm going to be grouping by event ID, obviously. And that should give me all of the user number of people going on every event. So let's go ahead and run that. 1. And 3 people going to event 2 and 3 people going to event 3. So basically, event ID, group by event ID and the count. That's it. And then if I were to, let's say, select only event where only less than 3 people are going to be attending, then I will do having and just do less than 3, and that should give me even 1 with 2 people, right? Just this one. Let's see what I get. And select. Boom, I have even 1 with 2 people. That is correct. So let's say this is just a normal select. I'm gonna show you guys update here. Let me run this select from events again and see what record we want to update. So let's say we have this coffee with friends. So for some reason, I'm gonna for some reason the coffee with events is pushing back to next year. So what I'm gonna do, update events, set event time, and next year that would be 2022. Let's say it would happen 1:15 and around 3 p.m. And what I'm gonna have to do, where ID is, that is the first event. So basically what I'm saying is update the event with the ID 1. What I'm updating, event time. So let's go ahead and run this one. Might have put O in that case here. That should do it. Successful. So let's go ahead and run the query here. 2022. 2020, oh sorry, 2021. Oh, I made a mistake. Let's do 2022 here. So run this. Run that. 2022, 01:15, 3 p.m. Beautiful. That's how you update the record. Last thing I want to show you, how to delete a record. Let's say for some reason one of our event user won't be able to make one of the event. So let's do that. Event participants here, and we're gonna delete one of those record. All right, what we got here is that. So let's say for some reason Rajesh, event user ID 4 is Rajesh, won't be able to make it to event ID 3. So for that, we're just going to delete that particular row here where ID is, this is the ID we're talking about, right? So if I do just 8 and then go ahead and delete that here. One thing I kind of forgot to mention earlier, so that's pretty much normal: select, update, delete, create table, create foreign key, constraint, primary key, all that. One thing very important that I would like to really touch on really quick is the index. The reason for that, if you look at the event participant table, we are not going to be querying with the ID in that table most of the time. What we're going to be using is event ID or event user ID, and those are not null. That's great, but they are not a primary key or anything like that. So querying with those event ID and event user ID would slow down our query. So what we really need to do here is create an index on these columns. So for that, I'm gonna show you how you can do that. It's very simple. All you need is a create index query here. I'm gonna paste it right here. So create index, and you can give it a name of your index here. I'm basically saying, event participant, event ID, and on the event, I'm basically creating an index on event ID, and here I'm creating index on event user ID. So let's go ahead and run this here. That's it. This will speed up your query here. And then, for now, this is going to be a wrap up for this video. Like I said, we're going to be looking at how to interacting with database using Java in next video. For this video, we were just basically looking at how to run normal query using a database ID. The reason I kind of put this video up here is because it's very important that you know how to do it using database ID before jumping in and try to do it with using Java. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in next video. Thank you.